That scared me.
Yeah, all right, set to go. Great. Council and staff, welcome to the budget meeting of January 13th. We welcome the viewing public as well. We'll start proceedings, call the morning meeting to order at 4:01. Today's meeting is being held as a virtual meeting due to the declared emergency. In order to keep everyone safe, we are taking this measure to help stop the spread of COVID-19. Although this is a virtual meeting, we will attempt to record, stream live, and publish in accordance with Council's electronic recording of meeting policy. Due to the pandemic and the requirements for social distancing, to keep you safe, we are not able to allow the public to attend this meeting. Normally, by attending an open public meeting of the municipality of Southwest Middlesex, you are consenting to your image, voice, or comments being recorded and published. Today's meeting may be streamed live as well as recorded, published on the Southwest Middlesex YouTube channel and website. Council, item number 2 on your agenda is disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Is there any declarations? Seeing none, we'll move on to staff reports. Finance, we are proceeding with the operating budget, and we're very pleased to have Kristen has presented some work and some new ideas. Kristen, I'll hand the chair over to you.
All right. Council, you'll see I have included an updated PowerPoint presentation in your agenda package. And then I've had a couple of discussions with the mayor and a couple of the councillors, and maybe put together some alternate proposals for your consideration as well. So I'm going to share my screen here, and we'll go through the PowerPoint that we currently have going. Any questions, just shoot me a question or interrupt, yell out, because I can't see everybody on my screen, I guess. So a lot of this will be a recap of similar presentation or the previous presentations. So this is just to take you through kind of where we've been. So we had a budget meeting on the 25th of November where you reviewed the budget survey and some of the capital and operating budget proposal presentations. December 2nd, we really focused on the Wardsville Storm Sewer project, and we voted to remove that from capital and put $100,000 into operating for that in order to direct that through the Drainage Act. And we removed the budget of the paving of the municipal lot between Symes and McKellar. So today I don't really have any additional information to give you. I figured we'd just go over kind of the position where we're at and kind of give you some direction on how decisions you can make to get to where we presume you want to be, but again, that's council's decision. So at our last meeting, December 16th meeting, we did make quite a bit of headway there. Council directed that $20,000 be reserved for accessible parking in Southwest Middlesex, that $10,000 be raised for line painting to delineate individual parking spots within the urban centers on main streets, that $12,500 be reserved for a fire master plan to be undertaken in 2022, that $15,000 be raised for the development of a community risk assessment plan, that the fire air compressor be approved, that the increase in costs for the recreation master plan be approved, and that the bleachers be removed from the 2021 budget. So where does that leave us right now? The assessment growth MPAC is finalized. We've rolled it to the new year, so we're firm at the increase of $60,000. Revenue has not changed, still a decrease of $110,800, and expenses now up $61,000. So that leaves us needing $112,530 where we stand right now, which is a tax rate increase of 1.15%. So on an average residential home, that's about $30.21 in a year, or $2.52 a month. A 1% tax increase for us this year is $97,450. So if we would like to get to a 1% tax increase, we need to decrease our budget by another $15,000. As of, I just checked again today, December is not posted. So as of November 2020, the 12-year cost of living increase, as reported by Statistics Canada, is 0.9%. I assumed a 1% increase in the budget for most of our expenses for cost of living. So we might come in slightly over that, but it should be fairly in line. The rest of everything else is the same in there. This has been updated from where we saw it last, but the only two lines that have changed, the decisions that council has made are all reserve or capital related. So everything from here up is exactly the same as you've seen in previous meetings. Just these bottom two lines before miscellaneous have changed some. So this is what I had recommended to come up with that 15,000. And from what I'm hearing from the mayor and some of the councillors I've spoken to, and in discussions with Jill, and who has herself spoken to some councillors, we tried to make a plan, an alternative plan, to leave the $25,000 in for work to be done in Appin, and come up with a way to raise that $15,000 without affecting that. So I'm going to share a different screen here with you. Sorry. If I have it open. Here we go. Show all windows. There we go. I have too many windows open, so it wasn't showing up on the. So this is kind of what I've put together today. The mayor and I walked through it. So this will come up with the same $15,081 that we saw in the previous presentation, just in a slightly different way. So we thought we could harvest a little bit from the staff training budget. We want to be able to remove, or, guard against training that would have been not a need to have, but a nice to have. Some training we do are still required to do annually. We still want our payroll manager to keep up with the payroll, and with some of our software training. And that screen, sorry. Can everybody see this screen all right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It's pretty small.
Is it?
It's pretty small, Kristen. Yeah.
Okay. Let me just see if I can hear. Woo. I don't think we needed that much.
I have a question, if I may, while you're doing that.
Yes.
Go ahead, Councillor Cal.
For the staff training budget, is some of that decrease able to be associated with the travel costs that come along with some training that now have gone online? I do worry. I don't want staff to not receive training, especially now when it is more affordable than ever because of the fact that much of it has gone online. Things like the Good Roads, for example, it used to be, not the Good Roads, the TJ Mahoney course used to be in person, and now it's online. So we could potentially have more people getting trained at a lower cost. So I just wanted to see if some of the decrease is associated with travel rather than reduced training.
This so far is just training, because there's not a lot of staff travel, to be honest. There's not very often that staff goes to a conference and stays for 4 nights. That's not a typical undertaking. Like we might have, if we go to the Keystone meeting, it's usually out of the area, and we'll have some, mileage that we pay to the staff lead on that. But there's not a significant, there's only, I think, $2,000 in the budget for staff travel for the year. So not a significant amount. This would be for, we left the AMO registration fee for Jill because she would need to still go to that in order to make a delegation. And we've left, I think, Krista, maybe what you're getting at is we do have some staff that are taking training courses to be able to further their careers. That's still in there. Some of the ones that we've removed are ones that, again, are nice to have. So we can probably get some of the same information by just reading the newsletters that they issue rather than signing up for a direct training course. So things that we may just have to get a little bit more resourceful on our own to find the information instead of logging onto something that just gives it all to you at once.
I think that was a very good question Councillor Cowell asked, but in dialogue with Kristen, we made sure that there is lots of training for staff. It's perhaps we may have to be a little more selective in our choice of curriculum, but we certainly realize the benefit of staff training, and it was just more or less fine tuning a line item is what we are. We're certainly, we're very cognizant of the importance of training.
And I think we might find as we go through the year that, I know certainly we did in 2020, that some things just weren't going to be made available in the same way. Instead, they might just, issue a PowerPoint presentation and not have an official training session anymore. So the possibilities there too is that we won't actually spend everything that's budgeted. So that's, like the mayor said, we'll be selective and only take the ones that we need to in order to maintain our skills so that we can still deliver the services. The train station deck was on there previously too. Council will recall, I think we had 25,000 budgeted in capital for that initially. And I think the work was a bit more extensive than they thought it was going to be. I'm sorry, I'm just checking my phone here. Council travel and mileage, the next line item, that's about half of the council mileage budget. And I think that it's kind of in line with where we're standing right now, year to date for 2020, sorry. I think a lot of the stuff will be offered virtually. So this is just the line for hotel rooms and travel and food for counselors going to conferences and seminars. So the next one is the Toshiba Copier. We can just, that's the full cost of the copier that was in there. We can just defer that for a year. It's still under warranty. We are trying to use less paper and do more things electronically, especially now since more people are, we're trying to get people out of the office and working safely from home. So I don't think that would be a huge inconvenience for staff to defer that for a year.
Could I ask something about that, Kristen?
Sure.
Through the mayor. When we had our budget deliberations, so it sounded like it was pretty important that we were going to have this copier because you never know how long the other copier was going to last. So I just wonder why we are hearing a change now.
Well, it's in our asset management plan. We usually try and keep it on a regular cycle for replacement so that we have two, and we don't want to get in a year where we've, all of a sudden they're both dying and need to be replaced. So we try and keep that fairly routine, similar to our vehicles. We try and keep that on a regular rotation. With this is the reason that I was pushing for this one to be replaced is that the ongoing operating costs are cheaper. So the copier is still working, and it's working fine. They still have parts available for it if it needs to be fixed. We did check that, but the operating costs for a new printer are cheaper. But the it might not be the year to make that leap. And then the next two line items are the same. You'll see the sidewalk budget increased a little bit just because I was using that to balance off to the 1%. So the Historical Society roof, that just removes the potential of putting the steel on it. This still includes a $5,000 repair cost budget. Sorry. So,
yes. Sorry.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Councillor Crothers. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Through you, the Mayor, Kristen. Just in referring to the society roof, I think there's a fair bit of money left on the table there. As an example, the entire roof for the new daycare center was about $80,000. The pitched roof, the shingle roof on the Historic Society building is probably about the equivalent square foot area, maybe one side of one large portion on the new daycare center. It's not that big. And just for instance, I just talked to some people that just put a new roof on their house last year, fair-sized house, 2-story of shingles, and it cost them $11,000 to put the house on. I just was told that. So I think there's quite a bit of money on the table on these Historic Society, whether you go with the steel or with the shingles, which will be cheaper initially. In the long run, they will cost more over many years. But that's one place I think you could, I wouldn't be a bit surprised you'd save the 15 right there on that one item.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Kristen, did we not cut that one back already?
Well, we had.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my assumption, Greg, that I don't know whether we did it officially, but the dialogue among council was that, and that was my impression when I talked to Kristen today, that I thought in principle, examining the roof, it's not in bad shape. It might be a want, not a need. And I think we could, the shingles are currently in stock, so we could repair some of that roof quite adequately and get us through to a less precarious time in our environment in terms of.
So Kristen, what is the 45,000 meant? Because original allocation was 50, so I think it's been decreased. I think what I had put in there was $5,000 to have a look at the roof.
Yes,
Yep.
You're exactly right.
That's
Okay.
right.
So I don't think we have any savings left there at this particular point.
No.
Brackets means negative, I think.
Yeah, Councillor Crothers, that means that I had originally put in $50,000 into the budget
Yes.
to do it, and now I'm just taking 45 out.
Yeah, I understand that.
Okay.
I believe also, Greg, the numbers you stated before, you thought maybe it was the whole entire roof, which a large portion of that building is flat roof, which wasn't included in what I was originally asking about. It was just the shingle portion. And as we talked before, there may be a possibility of patching it. Main thing is to make sure it doesn't start leaking, because when the roof starts leaking, then the costs of repair will increase exponentially after that. But whatever works out, as long as it doesn't leak, that's the main object.
Yeah, and through you, Mary Ellen, I agree with Councillor Crothers. Certainly, the roof leaking. We'll have a look at the roof. If it did need a repair, it needed a repair. And just keep in mind, the other thing is that part of the rec master plan review will be a review of the historical role within Southwest Middle. So we'll see how and those discussions go with those groups and what they require for the future. And it may look a little bit different this time next year.
Mm-hmm. Good. Thanks, Ian, and thank you, Greg.
Okay.
Council, any further questions to Kristen, or Kristen, continue on if you
Yeah,
if you
I've
wish.
got just two more quick things for council. I had, okay, Councillor Schuldeis just messaged me. He's not sure he can take his iPad off of mute. So,
Okay.
but I spoke with him earlier, and he would like to be considered in the budget, a motion to be made to allocate the proceeds of the lot that we sold in Wardsville, which was 62,000. That's currently sitting in a reserve, like a general reserve. He would like that reserve allocated to another reserve specifically for the replacement of the Wardsville Fire Hall. So there's no bottom line financial impact and no tax implication. That's just moving one reserve to another. So he would like that brought forward. And I think that he mentioned that he had discussed this with Councillor Vink. So maybe when we get to that point, Councillor Vink, maybe you could make the motion for that, if you're okay with that.
Yes, I can.
Okay. And I spoke with the mayor, and I think Jill maybe spoke with maybe some of the ward councillors in that area, but for the Appin, these changes leave the funds in for Appin. Now maybe in the motion there, we don't allocate it directly to Appin parking. If that is easier for the councillors, we could make the direction a little bit more broad and have maybe a report come back. Like leave the budget in there to pass the budget, but instead, the funds could be used for general community improvements in Appin, or something more specific to the park, or the parking. That's, up to council's discretion. But I guess what I'm saying is we don't have to decide exactly what you'd spend that 25,000 on tonight or this afternoon. Bless you. We could leave the budget in there and decide at a later date how that would be spent. We do have $4,000 currently in reserves to that was allocated for a light. Oh, sorry. Does the deputy mayor have a question?
I can't. The chair can't see.
I can't see her either.
Councillors, but speak up if anyone has a question.
Could I ask a question about the train station deck?
You're muted, Mary Gay.
I think I unmuted it. Did I not?
Oh,
Yep,
yeah, you did now.
Okay. It's okay, Kristen, you can continue as long as I can ask my question directly after you're done.
For sure. I'm done.
Oh,
I'm done.
well, that was easy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I'm just looking at the LPAT tribunal defense costs of $20,000, and I'm just wondering if council is comfortable leaving that in there, or if they're willing to take that out. And the reason I am asking this question is because in the last 20 years, prior councils have never defended one of the decisions. That's always been up to the applicant. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how you want to handle that, Mayor Mayhew, but I'm quite comfortable taking that out of there.
Yeah. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Wilkins. When that, there were, I remember making remarks to that I was concerned about who would pay for that if council proceeded with that. And when council endorsed the application, we're concerning the property, council were, accepting in principle their agreement that this particular severance should go forth. But I remember mentioning that I was concerned about the cost, and Mary Gay, I'd support you on that as well. I think that we have made a statement, but I don't feel comfortable with a personal severance being put on the levy for all of our municipality to pay. And I'm glad you brought that up. It was a concern that was expressed by myself and other councillors. We're concerned about that, and perhaps we could address that after Kristen's is focusing on her presentation, but don't let that go. I think that could be brought up as well.
Do you, if I could continue, Mayor Mayhew, do you want a motion to take that out of there, Kristen, or how do you want to handle that?
Yeah, that would be great if council would like.
Yeah. Mhm.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, and council, there's a motion that, and it's not that we are objecting, or changing our decision. We endorse the severance, but it's the cost in terms of defending that is being taken off. I require a seconder for that. A motion has been made. Councillor Cal, I saw your hand first, and Mike, can we hear you now?
Can you?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
We can hear you. Yeah. And Mike, if you have any technical problems, just send me, I can hear you fine. Send me a text,
Thanks.
Mike, if you need to. I just
Sorry to
wanted
speak for you.
Will do.
Council,
Appreciate it, Kristen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Council, what we're doing is that we are taking the $20,000 of projected cost out of the LPAT, from the LPAT proceedings. Is there a mover and a seconder? Time for questions. Councillor Cal?
I'm just wondering how many times this has come up in the past, and because you'd mentioned we've never sent anything along to support a decision like that. How many of these decisions have gone to the tribunal LPAT in the past?
I can't answer. That's a question we'll have to ask planning, that you could communicate with Dirk at planning. The head of planning would have the specific numbers. Oh, am I muted?
No,
Yeah.
Mary Kay,
Good.
Oh, okay. And Mary Gay, go ahead there. Yep.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I believe Councillor Cowell, at least twice that has come up in prior years, and it wasn't the LPAT, it was OMB. The numbers have changed, the name have changed in the last few years, at least twice.
Yep.
And we spent nothing?
No. I think, that too being said, I think that in terms of planning reviews are coming up, and this will be a time when council and councilors will have the time to bring forth a new idea. There's terminology out there on the benefits of what they call vertical farming, smaller farms. And when these official plans are under review, this subject's going to come up, and it will be, I think, aggressively debated. Council, there's the motion is before you. We'll certainly continue discussion. Is there any questions? I'm looking at everyone's smiling face here and seeing none. Last call. I'll call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. And Councillor Cal, you have a question?
I'd like to make the motion that for the copier, we only set aside half instead of all. You'd mentioned about the fact that we've done this with trucks before and how it's part of the asset management plan. So my concern is that next year's budget will be as tight as this year's budget because we will be dealing with the fallout of the pandemic. So I'd like to see some of it put into this year's budget. So my motion would be that for that half of the total of the copier be set aside in this year's budget. We did just trim 20,000, so it still potentially could work out with the suggestions Kristen's made. And so I make that motion that half be set aside for the copier.
Thank you. Council, I'll call for a seconder for that motion, and then we'll certainly have questions. Seconder for the motion? Councillor McGill. Noted. Councillor McGill seconded that motion. Council, conversation? Mark, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. What would the dollar amount be then? I don't have that figure in front of me here. Was it be 4,000?
4,018.
Roughly 4,000, yeah, and $18, yeah.
So that would go into reserve to buy a copier?
Correct. In reserve on the levy. Councillor Bartlett, I see your hand up. Go ahead, Doug.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Kristen, you mentioned there's a second copier. When is it due to be replaced?
I think we just replaced that 2 years ago.
Okay,
So we've got a
So-
few years left for that.
a few years. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Council, if one, I think the philosophy behind Kristen's presentation is the previous examination of the budget had items in it such as the Appin, 25,000 for Appin, the additional 40,000 for the train station deck, and three other entities in there that these were kind of the aspirations or the visions of council. So I apologize for these changes coming before council so little, but I can assure you that communications were going on as late as 10 o'clock last night, and several conversations today with Kristen, that an examination of line items was suggested where we could acquire savings. And that will, everyone sacrificed a little bit on this. Of course, the $9,000 we secured from council's travel and mileage was quite easy due to the pandemic. As was previously mentioned, the Historical Society roof was discussed at length at the last council meeting, and staff training. I assure all of council that we were quite cognizant of the importance of training, and we kind of cut the fluff off this. And the reason we looked at line items was that we did not want to take away some of the visions and the wish list that council has proposed, that it would be nice to address some of these issues. Of course, the train station deck, there's an element of safety in there as well, but it allows us to proceed with these. With the 20,000 taken out of LPAT, I was somewhat reluctant to go for that photocopier, but with the additional savings that we've made, there may be room for that. But I just want the philosophy of these changes that I can explain to council why they came in the 11th hour, is that through discussions, in order to advance the municipality ahead and to see tangible and touchable improvements to Southwest Middlesex, line items were quite aggressively analyzed, and they were done so that some of these visions that council had talked about in the past could come to reality and still meet the goal of a 1% budget increase. But, council, any other questions? Deputy Mayor Wilkins, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. So my question is to Kristen. Kristen, with the changes we've made so far, where's that put us?
We are at a 0.91% now. However, I was just going to say, after we vote on this, I was hoping we could address the only other addition to the budget, and that's the increase for the train station. Because then, I know 0.91 sounds like a big victory, but we're looking to add 40,000 too.
Yes, Councillor, any follow-up question, Deputy Mayor Wilkins? Hearing none, Councillor McGill, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you,
Yeah.
Mayor Mayhew. Through the mayor, could Greg maybe elaborate a bit on just what all needs to be done there to the train station deck? Because as I understand it, we originally had 25,000 towards this train station deck, and now we're adding 40,000. So that's $65,000. Is that correct? So that's a big job.
Yes, yeah, I thought the same. Yeah. Greg, would you like to speak to that?
Can we call the question first, please?
Yes, we can. Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
We
I'm sorry, we didn't get that.
Yeah, you bet. Okay, last call for discussion on the reserving half the cost of the photocopier. $4,019. I'll call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? Motion's carried. And Mr. Storms, I'll let you entertain an answer to Councillor McGill's question there.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. And through you, I have a question for Kristen. Kristen, so the total allocation in that budget now is 65,000 or 40,000?
65.
Okay. 65.
Yeah.
So, you know, basically with regards to, there's a couple components with regards to the decking at the train station. The one is that it has to be 100% consistent with the building itself. So it's going to be somewhat of a custom made situation there. You know, my goal in that whole situation is to include the Historical Society and you know, what we put on the building. The last thing we want to put on the building is, you know, something that's not consistent with the look of the building or the heritage of the building, etc. So that was the first part of it. Second part is that the underground structure, the structure that holds the deck up, is also going to have to be reviewed at the same time. I'm not sure it's going to be 65 in the end. You know, it may be closer to 50. So, you know, what I had suggested originally was that, you know, the 25 wasn't enough, simply because of the, you know, if we have to get all these boards cut through a mill, it's going to be a little bit more expensive than to get them, you know, just use stock stuff. So the other thing is the type and the look of it is going to have to be consistent with the building itself. So, you know, I'm hoping to get most of that type of information and include the Historical Society in this project, and just wanted to make sure there was enough money there to do it. So, you know, we could trim that a little bit too if you wanted, and bring that back 10,000, and then with the results of the information that we get as far as how much it's going to cost to replace the deck itself. So not just the deck, it's the underpinning of the deck, as well as the steps and stuff that we have there. So, you know, that's kind of the sort of background with regards to the decking.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Greg. I know I was involved in that first replacement. There was considerable research went into it when that existing deck was built, and the one that may be forthcoming could be very similar, if not identical to that. Councillor McGill, please ask your question.
Well, yeah, just a follow-up question. So I was thinking kind of along the lines of Greg, that maybe we do the train station deck project first, and if there's money left over, then we could use it to do some more roofing work at the Historical Society building.
Mm. Yeah, we that's a possibility, but in order to, yeah, we should have a definitive number in there. If what do you think about the, you'd rather leave that in? Do I interpret that as leaving the 65 in, or reconsidering the cost at $50,000?
No, just leave it at 65, because I wouldn't want to get started at that job and not have enough money to finish it. It sounds like it's more of a priority than the Historical Society roof right now. So I would say leave it at, the total would be 65,000 towards the deck, and hopefully we don't need to spend it all.
Yeah.
On that.
Yeah. Okay. And that's good discussion. And thank you, Greg. There is on that train station deck the element of safety. And there are some loose boards on the stairway that have caused some safety concerns in the past. And it's, as you know, if we ever get back to the venues of entertainment at the station on Sunday, that whole platform is quite aggressively used as a staging area as well for entertainment. So safety is very important, and that also is the our wheelchair accessibility route is up the back and on the deck on that one. So it is important. Jill, I'm sorry, I see your hand there. Sorry to keep you waiting.
That's all right. I think this got mentioned when we first brought the proposal for the increase, but I haven't heard it mentioned today. But we do know that lumber prices increased significantly from when the budget was passed for the $25,000 and to now, even to this summer, this fall, right? So the lumber prices have significantly increased for a variety of reasons during the pandemic, but I don't know that they will be less for this year.
Okay.
So that's another reason why, you know, the project kind of just wasn't going to cover the budget for that particular project.
Good. Thank you, Jill. Council, any other questions regarding some of the proposals that have been made here on Kristen's idea? I just would like to say a couple of things. One, I am interested in Councillor Scholdice. I'm very supportive of Councillor Scholdice's idea of keeping that money in Ward 3, in the Wardsville Ward 3 area, the sale of that lot. The only thing I caution on, and Councillor Scholdice, you can respond to this, I would like to see that money reserved for the ward that you and the Deputy Mayor and I and Martin represent, to keep it in there. But I'm just wondering if it may not be advantageous to pigeonhole it for a particular project. There's nothing wrong with the fire hall, but if that 60,000 could be reserved for improvements in the Wardsville and Ward 3 area, rather than pigeonhole us in one particular thing, I'm very supportive of that money being solely spent in the ward you represent. But I just wondering if you're doing your ward a favor by pigeonholing it. How would you feel about that? Go ahead, Councillor Scholdice.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I appreciate your comments on it. I would just like to say that the Glencoe Fire Hall has a reserve fund. It's quite a bit newer. The Wardsville Hall is quite old. It's too small for the purpose it's currently serving. It was originally a gas station. And we've recently just spent almost the same amount updating the heating system in the Glencoe Fire Hall that I'm asking to have set aside for a reserve for the eventual replacement of the Wardsville Fire Hall. So I would prefer it to state that it is for the replacement of the eventual replacement of the fire hall, so it doesn't get lost somewhere else.
Okay, so that will be held in reserves until such time.
In reserve, correct.
In reserve. Okay, and if you feel strongly about that, you make a motion. I'm sure you'll get some support from council on it. Councillor Vink, go ahead.
Yes, I'd just like to reiterate what Councillor Scholdice said. I completely agree with him. As you well know, Mayor Mayhew, that all reserves can be changed at a later date anyway.
Yep.
So if something came along, it can be voted on in the future to change it.
Yep.
So I'm in complete agreement with Councillor Scholdice, and I would second his motion.
Yep. Okay. Mike, you'll make that a motion, and I'm very much aware that a budget is a blueprint, it's a map, and reserves can be changed and allocated to different projects. I'm very much aware of that. Yep. Okay, that's fine. Councillor Scholdice, just to formalize it, you're making a motion to that effect?
I'd like to make a motion that the proceeds from the sale of the building lot in Wardsville on Haggerty Road be directed to a reserve for the eventual replacement of the Wardsville Fire Hall.
Okay, and you'll second that, Councillor Vink?
Yes, I will, Mayor Mayhew.
Okay. Councillor Scholdice, would you object to a friendly amendment of saying the net proceeds? There was real estate commissions that had to be paid in that. So would you mind putting the word net, that, you know, what we put in the bank on the sale will be put towards that?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. That's good. Council, there's a motion on the floor. We'll certainly entertain questions on that. Yes, Councillor Cowell, go ahead.
Money that we sell in a, for example, I believe there had been some properties sold, and it was recommended that perhaps some of the money from those properties be used towards the daycare. And I know in the past we've made motions that are pretty tight and bind hands, and in lots of cases we've needed to go back and actually have a reconsideration for some of the motions that we've made. So, and that's part of the reason how come we have reports come back and information come back. So for me, because of the type of motion this is, I won't be supporting it. It has nothing to do with the content of the motion. It's the fact that it seems like a snap decision, and I want more time to consider it. I want more information. But can you talk to Kristen a little bit about how these type of things usually happen with the sale and what usually happens with it?
Okay, so I guess what Martin's getting at is that there are two kinds of reserves that we deal with within a municipalities. There's obligatory reserves, which we can't, they're very specific for what we can use. We can't move them in and out of different reserves. They have to stay where they are and only be used for what they're prescribed for. So if we're getting a grant, gas tax, OCIF, those types of things. If this is a council decision to allocate the money, I don't think it would need a reconsideration to adjust what we're using the funds for. So this would be just moving the items from one spot on the balance sheet to another. And this in no way ties council to a requirement to build a new fire hall in Wardsville at all. We set up a reserve for a replacement of a fire hall in Wardsville. And I'm not saying this would ever be the case. Say you decide you are not going to do that, you can divert the funds to anything else in Wardsville. You could divert the funds to Middlemiss. It's entirely council's discretion, but it doesn't tie you to anything.
Thank you, Kristen. I hope in principle, though, that the fact is in principle that we want, it was a Wardsville lot. The revenue came from that ward. And in principle, we want that money to be spent in Ward 3. Mm-hmm. And I know things can change. There's others examples that this council has had in the very recent past that might reflect somewhere in this conversation, but we'll bring those up later on in the meeting. Councillor McGill, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Given what Kristen said, I think I can support this motion. Although we are going to be spending quite a bit of money on other things around Wardsville. I think over the coming years, the drainage will cost this municipality a lot in Wardsville. So who knows, maybe we could transfer it from the hot fire hall to drainage if a year or two down the road, if it turned out that there's a lot of extensive drainage over a few years' time. And another Wardsville issue I'd like to bring up is the Wardsville Sewers, which that's in the budget for about $45,000, and that's a case of where Wardsville Sewers, the operation of the Wardsville sewer system is paid for by the whole municipality, even though people in Glencoe have really big sewer bills and people out in the country have to spend over $20,000 now on a septic system, and then it needs to be pumped every 3 years. It costs about $200. So that's something we'll have to deal with at some point concerning Wardsville.
It's well taken, Councillor McGill. I think, yes, Councillor Vink, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Ask for a recorded vote on this.
Yep, no problem. Thank you. Just last call for questions. Just a recent example of that. The Carnegie Library was sold for, I think, around, I won't disclose the amount of money, but that was a Glencoe library prior to amalgamation for many, many, many years. And Kristen, those funds that we received from that sale of surplus property, they were not allocated to anything specifically, I don't believe, were they?
They're still sitting in reserve.
Oh, in reserve, okay. Mm-hmm. Not identified as any particular project, eh?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. But that's an example where that is in general reserves as opposed to a specific reserve, so that all of Southwest Middlesex has the opportunity to benefit from that sale of surplus land. In this case, we are favoring Wardsville, and I don't have any problem with that at all. But just to give you a recent example that has a little different scenario.
Maybe if I could
Yeah.
add to that, sir. Anything that we don't have a specific project for, if we've received money that is not budgeted for, I will always reserve that. And if staff would like to use that, it would be specifically identified for council.
Okay, that's good.
So we
Yep.
wouldn't, you know, we don't, like I show you on a capital schedule when we're bringing reserve funds in, but if it's project specific, it's because it was reserved or the taxes were raised in a previous year for that project. So we wouldn't just slide that into revenue for, you know, a miscellaneous project. We would definitely identify that for council.
Thank you, Kristen. I'm going to call the last call for question. There's another item on Kristen's suggestions I'd like to get to prior to, I'm targeting 5:30 to adjourn this meeting if I can. I'd like to give council the opportunity of having an hour off. Last call for questions. Jill, I'll hand it over to you and you can call the vote.
Okay, so it's a recorded vote for the net proceeds of the 2020 sale of the municipal property located at 21969 Haggerty Road, Wardsville, be reserved to establish the eventual replacement of the Wardsville Fire Station, is moved and then seconded by Councillor Scholdice and Councillor Vink. Then Councillor Vink has called for a recorded vote, so we'll start with him. Councillor Vink?
Yes.
Councillor Bartlett? Did he just disappear?
Gosh, someone's on a phone here, but I'm not sure who it is.
Yeah, that's the fire chief.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, I think he's not here now. So Mayor Mayhew, so I'll proceed.
Oh, he's
Yep.
there.
Oh, he's back. He's back.
Are you back, Doug? Can you hear us, Doug?
Doug's on mute.
Okay, yeah. If you could take your mute off and if we can hear your voice there, Doug. Yeah, thank you.
I'm back.
We have a recorded vote here, Councillor Bartlett, reserving the money from the sale of the net proceeds of the sale of the lot in Wardsville to put in the reserves for the Wardsville Fire Hall when that time comes to examine replacement. This is a
Yes.
recorded vote. Are you voting for or against?
For.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Scholdice,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Wilkins,
Yes.
Mayor Mayhew,
Yes.
Councillor McGill,
Yes.
Councillor Carruthers,
Yes.
Councillor Cowell,
No.
and the motion carries.
Okay, thank you, Jill, and thank you, Council. Yes, Councillor Cal, you have a question?
I'd like to make the motion that the $25,000 for Appin stays in the budget, but moves into reserves for the Appin reserves for having a discussion about the rec master plan.
Okay,
So-
so community improvements, so to speak. Reserve that money for Ward 1, the Appin area, for future community improvements. And that would be, so to speak, and that would be, it was very wise to wait for that master plan before we spend that money, no doubt. But I can see your point. Okay, is there a seconder for Councillor Cal's motion? Yes, Councillor McGill. I noticed Councillor McGill's hand. Thank you, Councillor Bartlett, but Councillor McGill, I noticed first. I think that is a very well thought out motion. Again, it doesn't pigeonhole us into one particular thing, such as paving a parking lot. We can expand and vision, and we want to make sure that just as in Wardsville's case, that that 25,000 will be there for improvements to the Ward 1 communities. Questions to the chair or to Councillor Cal or Councillor McGill? Yes, Councillor Scholdice, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I'm not sure whether I heard the whole conversation or not. Is this money coming from the 25,000 that was set aside for the church parking in Appin?
This was the paving of the parking lot behind the community center.
Correct. Okay. Did we not promise those people that we would do something this year with the parking?
We were looking at improvements. I don't believe we make promises as a council, but
I don't mind answering that question if it makes it easier. The motion that we made said that we would ask them for consultation. And also, I believe our former rec and facilities manager did make some steps to improving their parking situation. And then we had said we would spend the $25,000. So now it's budget time, and I'm just making sure that money gets aside so that there is actually money to do those upgrades. And with COVID-19, there hadn't been so many issues with parking. And through the rec master plan, the idea is that we reach out to these different organizations that use our facilities anyways. So we're saving a bit of time and money because that's already going to be happening through the rec master plan. And then we have some funding set aside already to sort of execute some of the projects. So that's sort of the idea behind setting aside the amount of $25,000 for improvement, so it doesn't pigeonhole us in case the community says, you know what, maybe paving the parking lot isn't the best thing for Appin, but it gives us the opportunity to get their feedback.
Thank you, Councillor Cowell. And Councillor Scholdice, if I could just add to that, there could be improvements in that region that would complement the church beside it. Lighting is a prime example. We currently have $4,000 budgeted for lighting from last year's budget. Lighting, to do it properly, to light up that parking lot may cost more than that. So lighting is important as well, and that could be cognizant of a better infrastructure for parking in the evening. And yep, Councillor Vink, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I too was under the presentation what Councillor Scholdice said, because I believe, if I recall correctly, we had a presentation from people from the Appin Presbyterian Church, and I understood that we were promising them improvements to the parking. And so I would like to see that the 25,000 is more specific for parking and possibly for lighting. I haven't got a problem with changing that, but I would like to see that motion be specific for that idea, because I'm just like we promised something for Victoria Street in Melbourne and we didn't follow through with the promise. I'd like to keep this promise that we gave to these presenters from Appin.
Okay. It's, yeah, I guess is the word paving that concerns the chair a bit, but it is still a fair walk from that parking lot to the church. And I'm wondering if there would be something better we could use, like a sidewalk system or regrading some of the land has very unusual pitch between the building and the church. And, you know, whether there could be improvements there. You know, I don't object to spending the money to benefit the church. I'm very pro thinking on that matter, but I just want to spend it in the best way possible to accommodate parking and walking and traffic, and whether black asphalt behind that building is the best way to spend 25,000 to enhance the conveniences in the area. I'm not sure whether it is, whether it'll be utilized that much, but anyway, we'll let the council continue the questions. Go ahead, Councillor Cowell. Thank you.
I had a chance to speak to the elders of the church in that community, more than one of them. And for them, it was a principal sort of situation. They were frustrated with how they had been treated during the parking issue and the different, not misconceptions, but miscommunications that occurred. And so for them, most of what they talked about is they are very, very involved in the Appin community, and they wanted to see improvements in the Appin community because, like the busy bees from the church, they are some of the people that actually built that community center. So it wasn't specifically that the church needed to have something, but they wanted to see improvements in their community. Additionally, I'd like a recorded vote please.
Yep, no problem. And Krista, just for clarification, you know, we would, the reason we examined those line items was to keep things like this in our budget so we wouldn't have to make a decision of losing it. And you maintain the same philosophy. You previously told council that we can earmark it for this, but the principle is we spend the money in the community. And if we find other ways to convenience the citizenry of Ward 1 in that region and in that parish, we can entertain those ideas. Is that correct? It doesn't have to be necessarily totally spent on blacktop. Is that correct?
If the community comes back and says, we must have a paved parking lot, I mean,
exactly.
The point of the master plan in facilities is to take a look what the community wants. We're going to be asking, there is the museum committee that is there. There is the different church groups. There is the SMAC. And I mean, we see so much investment from the Appleton community in the buildings themselves. We know that SMAC paid for the lighting. So I just don't want to tie anybody's hand, because if we find out that there's a really great idea and the community gets behind it and wants to help support pay it, you know, 25,000 could quickly turn into quite a bit more. So I'm just trying to be flexible and not tie anybody's hands with a decision to have blacktop.
Yep, that's the chair's feeling too. And anyway, I'll call the last call for questions. If there are any, yes, Councillor Vink, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Mayor Mayhew, I do agree with that. It doesn't have to be necessarily blacktop. What I was referring to was improvements in the area of the community center and the church. So it could mean lighting, it could mean parking, it could mean sidewalks. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, and I think we're on the same page there. Quite honestly, and further to Councillor Cowell's observations, that is a very important building. In fact, I would categorize it as being one of the best facilities in Southwest Middlesex, if not the best. It is the best facility in Southwest Middlesex. Council, I'll give you the courtesy to ask one more question. Yes, Councillor Scholdice, go ahead. Last question.
If we could please just have the motion read back.
Yes, go ahead.
The $25,000 be set aside from the budget for the app and community improvements.
Okay, and I think Councillor McGill seconded that, did he? Yep. Did he? Yep. Okay, that's good. Good, Jill. Yeah. Go ahead, Jill.
Yeah, Mayor Mayhew, can I just confirm too? I thought that the consultation be undertaken as through the recreation facility master plan as well. Is that part of the motion?
Exactly. That's an important component of that, Jill. Yes, and I see Councillor Cowell's head nodding, and I think she's in agreement with that.
Thank you.
Okay, and Jill, at your convenience, you can call the vote.
Councillor Cowell?
Yes.
And Councillor Bink?
Yes.
Councillor Bartlett?
Yes.
Councillor Scholdice?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Wilkins?
Yes.
And Mayor Mayhew?
Yes.
And Councillor McGill?
Yes.
And Councillor Carruthers? Oh,
Yes.
I got everybody. Sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
The Carruthers, sorry.
Thanks
The
very
motion
much.
carried.
Council, it appears that was unanimous. Thank you very much. Kristen, should we ask you where we're at right now?
Well, could we, I know we had a discussion on the deck of the train station, but did we vote on that?
I think in principle, there was discussion that we leave, and I think the discussion was spearheaded by Councillor McGill, that the the $40,000 increase we leave in because of the unknowns in that project, the importance of that project. And if there's anything left over, we know that we can redirect it to roofing.
Okay.
Was that correct, Councilor McGill? That was yours. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah,
Go
thank you,
ahead,
Mayor
Mark.
Mayhew. Could I make a motion that we increase the train station deck by 40,000, decrease the Historical Society roof by 45,000, and if the train station deck job is done first and there's money left over, we use it towards the Historical Society roof as well, or at least reserve it towards the roof.
Yep, that was my understanding of the conversation. If you'd like to formalize that in a motion, that is great. It assists staff. There's a motion on the floor. Would someone second that? Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Bartlett, thank you. Discussion to the chair, or Councillor McGill, or Councillor Bartlett. Councillor Crothers, go ahead.
Yes, through you, the mayor. I guess I would, if it needs to be added on there, a stipulation that the roof of the Historical Society be inspected to make sure it doesn't leak.
I
And
think
if it's fine, fine. Yeah.
Yeah, and the recreation plan, master plan, there'll be an evaluation of our facilities building that may come under that, but
the reason being there are several shingles that are blowing off now, and there's some pretty rough spots now. It may
Well,
last for
I would
a
be
while.
open to a friendly amendment to add that this Historical Society roof be re-inspected.
Yes.
Through you, Mayor Allen, we already have 5,000 in the budget for the inspection of the roof.
Okay.
You know, you may want to, you know, pin the deck at 60 and put the other 5 on the, you know, on the shingle roof at the other building to make it 10, and then it's just 2 different projects. If the deck comes back in at 10,000 over budget, I'm going to have to come back and talk with them.
yeah, or we can move the money around. Mark,
I mean,
would you consider that a friendly amendment, Mark, by taking that 65 down to 60 and moving it over to the existing 5,000 we already have in the budget for the roof?
Well, only if Greg feels confident that we're not going to go over the 60,000 on the train station deck.
Yeah, Mr. Storms, I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good number, but I don't know for sure. And, you know, I think that is a project that, you know, like I said before, which is more of a custom type project that, you know, that we made library itself at 10. I mean, we can do the shingle roof for there. That could be something that's just put out in a spec and get it done. And then we may have to look at the train deck itself. But I mean, saying that, I mean, you know, it may come back cheaper as well. I don't know the answer to that.
It may, yeah, Councilor McGill, it may be better business to say, you know, whatever's left over we spend on this roof, you know, by designated as 2 separate projects, and bringing that capital up to $10,000 might be better from a management perspective. But you made the motion, I'll certainly leave it to you, and we'll make sure that we'll ask that this be a friendly amendment, and if you don't feel comfortable with it, we can leave it as you've moved it.
Well, maybe just leave it as I moved it, and hopefully we don't spend the full 65,000 on the train station deck.
Okay.
I don't want to run short on it, though.
Okay, that's fine, and it's been seconded. Last call. Thank you, Council. We'll call the vote on this. All in favor of Mark's motion? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Councilor McGill. Kristen, if we could let you take a deep breath there and tell us where we're approximately at. And we've certainly realized that the county has not added their position in yet, but.
All right. Can everybody see this?
Yep.
This is where we're currently at. So our tax rate increase right now is 0.86.
Okay.
So we, if council wishes, we could leave it at 0.86. We could add 13,900 to the sidewalk budget or another project. We could not reduce council mileage, and, you know, staff training, we could leave those as is.
No, some of your suggestions I agree with, others I feel somewhat uncomfortable about, but council, any comments?
I have a comment.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Cal. I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand. I'm on a split screen here, so I am compromised on view.
That's
Go
okay.
ahead.
I'm personally comfortable leaving the staff training in with the or even halving it and saying, okay, here's some for this year and here's some for next year. As I said, people may not be interested in doing additional training because this is such a taxing year. However, because it's online, they may decide to do some of the want rather than. So for me personally, I think leaving that staff in there, and then if it doesn't get used, it can be rolled over. And like I said before, our budget next year could be very tight as well. So if they had a good bumper year of training and they say next year's our year to cut it, I just don't want to take that away from staff. And then for council travel, I don't have a problem with it. How much is our travel budget traditionally?
Originally, it was budgeted the 9,000, I believe. I'll let Krista speak to that, but I believe that we took that out because of the environment that we know we will not be traveling or staying in hotels for somewhat of an extended period of time. And it was evaluated that until there's a vaccination rate that is sufficient in the province of Ontario, that it was felt that we will not be partaking in some of the we will be on virtually, but not traveling outside the comfort of our home and our computer. But I'm going to let Kristen answer your concerns there. She opened the door here, and I'll let her.
All right.
Her handle that.
The 2021 budget right now sits at 18,500.
Oh, that's a lot. Oh, I'm not muted.
Yeah, no, I know we really went over them, and I think there's a lot of training in there.
Yeah.
And council, I guess what Kristen's telling you, we can accept the budget as we've the motions that council have put forward and the adjustments that have been made. There's been some very good suggestions to council to save money. And we can accept it and put it to bed. Or if you want to look for additional avenues to spend money to bring it up to 1%, we can earmark the 13,000 for additional projects. I just looked at our sidewalk reserve, just out of interest is we have $103,821 in sidewalk reserve, and Kristen has increased it $9,104. So with what we have in reserves and what we're adding to our sidewalk program, if we're laying sidewalks, Ian, you could be better, but I'm thinking about $90 a meter. We're looking at 1,300 meters of sidewalks with the money that we have on hand. I don't know whether I'm close to that $90 a meter, but I think in the past it's been 78, 79, and I'm thinking they might be up in price. But there is a significant reserve in sidewalks at 103, or Greg can speak to that. But council, the chair is asking which you want to go.
Through you, Al. Yes, I'm trying to remember. I don't have in front of me, but I do have the figures from a couple, 3 years ago. We have missed 2 years actually of replacing any sidewalks. In essence, the sidewalks done 2 years ago were replacements for the replacements from the year before. There is definitely a huge need for sidewalk replacement in the municipality. And my suggestion would be to put as much as possible in to try and catch up a little bit. I've had, that's probably one of the predominant reasons that I get complaints, I guess. There are several sections where sometimes there's only a few feet that have gone bad in a sidewalk that's otherwise not bad. And it would be good to have some of those repaired at the same time. But it's definitely a huge issue. in some areas. So
I'm sure Ward 2 councillors hear that quite often. Councillor McGill, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I'm in agreement with what Councillor Crothers said. And however, I'm just mostly interested in sidewalk replacement, because when they're all cracked or heaved up and people trip over them, that's not good. But there's lots of places where there's no sidewalks. We don't even know for sure in places, some places where there's no sidewalks, people might not want sidewalks. There's brand new developments where there's no sidewalks, like for example on Tanya that was just done, for instance. So I'm in favor of putting more into reserve for sidewalk replacement, not for new sidewalks where there are no sidewalks now, unless there's some really good reason why we might do that. There may be in some cases. Like for example, there's going to be a sidewalk put down to the daycare. That makes perfect sense.
Yep. Mark, you are, Councilor McGill, aware that we have increased the sidewalk budget in the recommendations that are before us. $9,104 is in addition to what we already have in reserve, but you're asking for more than that, are you?
No, I'm asking for that to be left in, and hopefully we get some sidewalks done this year, because there haven't been any done for a couple of years.
You're satisfied with the increase that Kristen has proposed then. We have 103,000 in reserves and we have 9,000 additional money going in, as long as you're aware of that. And Councillor Cal, followed by Mr. Storms. Greg, Councillor Cal had her hand up first, but we certainly won't forget you. Go ahead, Krista.
I'd like to make the motion that we keep the staff training in, reduce the council amount by half, and increase the sidewalk budget to the 1%. That would put it up to the 1%.
Is there a second for that motion? Chair will call it again. Is there a seconder for that motion? Deputy Mayor Wilkins. Okay. Discussion? Councillor Crothers, Councillor Vink, Councillor Scholdice. Go ahead, Councillor Crothers.
Yes, just for what I was saying about some sections, I agree with Mark. If a sidewalk's getting bad, you don't want to start passing it, but there is instances where it's just one section, perhaps 4 or 5 feet, that's all broke up for some unknown reason. There was a lady fell just down the street from me here on one section that's broke up, even though the rest of the walkway is good. I'm just suggesting at the time there may be a few spots. The rest of the sidewalks is in good shape, and that there might be at that time every other sidewalk replacement just to repair a little bit, and that would perhaps improve the safety a little bit. But no, I'm not anticipating repairing something that's in bad shape to start with. It needs to be replaced.
Okay. Councillor Vink, you're second on the list here. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I'm not in favor of changing the council expenditures. We've had a long history of having less than what we budgeted for on council expenditures, even before the pandemic. And so there's no sense changing that.
Okay. And I believe Councillor Scholdice, you were the third councillor who had their hand up.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I don't want to get off topic here, but it looks like we're getting close to approving this budget. And to avoid confusion later on in the year, I wondered if we could have a list of the capital projects to be completed this year before we approve this budget, so that we have something to go back on at the end of the year.
If that's necessary, as I say, a budget is a blueprint. We're setting guidelines, and
it's just in the past we've approved quite a few different projects that have not materialized for one reason or another, and some of them never did come back to council. So I'd just like a list of exactly what capital projects we are approving.
Yeah, and some of these projects are also weather related, and the availability of contractors as well. Greg, could you assist me in this endeavor?
Yes, through you, Mayor Allen. I just want to make a couple quick comments with regards to sidewalks. My general thoughts on sidewalks are that, 75% of what we deal with is in pretty good shape. The other 25% is awful. So it's that simple. We have spots where sidewalks are just terrible. I can think of runs in Wardsville. I can think of runs just down the main street in Glencoe. Because for years they just put in sidewalks. People just put in sidewalks. But sidewalks cost people money in the future. I'm not sure that every one of our street needs sidewalks on both sides of the road. So that's something that we always look at now with any new development to try to sort of limit the maintenance cost in the future. At $100,000, we're looking at maybe about 1.7 kilometers of sidewalk replacement. That's if, all goes well. So that's really kind of the number that we're looking at. It will make a little bit of a dent, but it's not, this program is going to have to be ongoing for a number of years to get a handle on sidewalks. And, there's going to be times where we just take sidewalks out rather than replace them. And, we would like to do that in several areas right now, simply because, there's just too many sidewalks, in certain areas, and, they're not getting used either. So certainly with cul-de-sacs, when you build a new cul-de-sac and it has, 9 units, you tend not to get sidewalks. Certainly the new developments we're working on at the Hosey lands or, Butte and Montrose areas, they all do contain connective sidewalking, but we're trying to limit that so that in the future, the residents have access to sidewalks, but, that we're not sort of setting the table for, huge maintenance costs for the future, because it is a big part of winter maintenance. So when I do my numbers, just my average numbers are about $50 a meter for sidewalk replacement. So at that $100,000 range, it puts us around 2 kilometers. It's going to be about 1.75 kilometers for that number. And we're going to certainly work towards getting that done and getting that out as early as we can, because, you may think that's a lot of money for a contractor, but it's not. So we have to get sort of those mid-level contractors involved in quoting these particular projects. So I know when Newberry got theirs done, that they had a couple million to spend. So it was a little bit easier for them to just get a contractor to come in and, put sidewalks in through the whole hamlet there. So, and generally, just my general thoughts as far as, capital staff have, not put in a whole lot of capital projects simply because, in the past, certainly in recreation, where we have a whole number of projects that are sitting aside right now, they weren't completed, and Councillor Scholdice is correct. Certainly I had challenges even in public works this year with the pandemic. But at the same time, want to make sure that, when we say we're putting capital projects in the budget, that we can actually get them done. And, that's the whole idea. So, it wasn't more of a wish list for us. It was a need list. And it was a list that was sort of shortened so that we have the ability to try to get this done. Now on the rec side, it's going to be a little more difficult because, if there was 80% of the projects last year didn't get completed. So, I still need to deal with those as well. So, and we will, but it's just a situation where, my experience with capital is when you say you're going to do something, then you have to perform. So it's pretty simple. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Councillor Scholdice's comments are well taken, but it's a separate issue to the numbers game here as to where we are at with the tax rate increase. But it's certainly any councillor's right to question the administration as to how something is progressing. And I think council are in agreement with Councillor Scholdice, and no criticism to staff that when we budget for something, it's our hope and our aspirations that the project be completed. And there were a few tail ends in last year's budget that were not, but I know staff are aware of that. And as Mr. Storms has indicated, I think they're in agreement with the philosophy that we'll move ahead and keep an eye on the ball a little more this year. Councillor McGill, I see your hand up, and Councillor Treasurer Kristen following Councillor McGill. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, there's no motion on the floor right now, is there?
Yes, there is. Actually, Krista Kyle has a motion. It's been seconded by the deputy mayor.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
It's extensive, so I want to keep on subject here. We have a motion on the floor.
Yeah,
In
I
fact,
won't get off topic then.
I'm going to ask Jill to reread that motion, and the chair would like to deal with it. Get it out of the way. We can move on.
So as I understand it, the motion relates to the proposals that were brought forward by the treasurer this evening. So with respect to the changes that were proposed from the initial budget. So this is maintaining staff training as it is, reducing the amount for a reduction for counselor education and training sessions by half. And I think, Kristen, if you can remind me, is that a $9,000 initially proposed? So now 4,500. Yep. And then I would just, then it's whatever the difference is putting into a sidewalk reserve the amount remaining to bring the tax rate increase to 1%. Is that correct?
That's what I understood.
Good. Questions to council? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Kell.
I just wanted to make a comment because the whole 18,000 isn't just our driving, but it's also the cost of the conferences and so on. So I just, because they're online, in some ways it offers the opportunity for more people to attend. And I know Councillor Crothers participated in AMO this summer. So I just wanted to have a little bit of cushion because these are online and we don't have to travel for them. It really does provide an opportunity for more people to participate, and it's less costly because there isn't a hotel stay or food costs and things like that. So I just thought it would be a good way to still offer, for example, with our conference OGRA, Roma that's coming up. We have to register to be part of the delegation, and I wouldn't normally go to that conference because of my scheduling and work commitments, my other commitments, but because it's online and I don't have to be in Toronto, I am considering it. And so that's all. That was my thought process, was that if all of a sudden we could attend more, because same thing with staff, because more training has gone online, it could be a good year to participate in more of it. So anywho, that's how come. I agree that it needs a decrease, especially this year, but I didn't want it to see it go all the way down to 9,000 because AMO itself is $700. And that's if all of us decided to go or half of us decided to go, that's quite substantial.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment here?
Yes. Before you do, the $9,000 was acquired not from a reduction in conferences. It was a reduction on travel and hotel lodging. Is that correct?
Yeah, the 18,000 is specific to travel. There's a separate line item for, yes. I think it's 8,500. That's for the registrations.
Yeah. So that's it would not, I'm having difficulty supporting the motion because I know that the work that staff have gone into not decreasing training and professional development to counselors. It's the fact that because of the COVID environment, we do not have the expense of travel and lodging. And that's where that 9,000 came from. It was in the budget, but it didn't need to be in the budget. That's where we extracted it out in order to make some of these proposals that were on the line to go ahead. But Kristen, go ahead. I'm sorry to take it.
No, I just wanted to clarify that.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Questions, council, on the motion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, I see 3 hands. All opposed? Motion is defeated. There were 4 votes. Councillor Bartlett, you kind of froze on me there.
Yeah, I apologize. I lost my internet again.
Okay. All right. Jill, how do we handle Councillor Bartlett's vote? Do we let it go or?
So you have already called the vote?
I saw there were 4 hands opposed to the motion. There were 3 hands up.
Right.
Guess whatever way Councillor Bartlett would vote, if he had that opportunity, it wouldn't
Would
change
still
the
be
outcome.
defeated,
It
correct?
would still be defeated. That was my intention. Yeah. Thank you very much. Councillor, thank you again. I know everyone has the best interest of their municipality at heart, and we've had lots of good ideas here, and whether we agree with them or not, we appreciate them coming forward. Kristen, if you could give us just, again, just a quick review of where we are. I think it was 0.88 or something like that we're at now, or has it changed?
Yeah, no, we haven't made any further adjustments. We are at 0.86. So I guess if you want to go, there are 3 current proposals, and I think the sidewalk one is variable. So what if we voted on staff training and council mileage separately, maybe, and then if council wishes, we could go with a 3rd motion to allocate whatever.
The chair wonders if that's really necessary, because the motion just being defeated had those subjects in the context of that motion, and it was defeated by council. Is it necessary to bring those subjects back? Anyway, yes, go ahead, Councillor Cal.
I would make the motion that we keep the staff training in, take the suggestion of staff for mileage, and the difference up to 1% be for sidewalks. Everyone get on board with that? So it's saying staff can have training, we reduce council's spend like it was suggested by staff, and anything that's different that brings us up to 1% goes into sidewalks. It's literally the difference of saying staff can have the, yeah.
I will second that. I will second that, Mayor Mayhew.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. I was wondering if Councillor Crothers was seconding that, Deputy Mayor. I saw his hand go up. Councillor Crothers, is it a question or were you seconding that?
I was seconding it.
Okay. No,
That's okay.
Mayor beat you to it. Okay.
I'll remove mine. He can second it.
Okay. That's great. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Okay. Moved by Councillor Cal, seconded. So we are at a 1% tax rate increase, and we have put the training back in to staff. Is that correct? Okay. Yeah. Councillor McGill, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. How much would we be increasing the sidewalks by then? Was going to be 9,000. Now it's going to be
22,936.
22,000?
Yeah.
Oh.
Mayor Mayhew, if I could just speak to that for a quick minute.
And yeah, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Some years ago, just for councillors' information, some years ago, I advocated for 80,000 to be put in sidewalk budget, realizing there was a huge need for many of the sidewalks in Southwest Middlesex to be repaired or replaced. The complaints were many and constant, and council did support the $80,000 that year. But since then, it was dramatically reduced to about 20,000 a year. And that only just touched a bit of the need for replacement repair in our municipality. I'm happy to hear we have such a nice reserve put away. But honestly, as Greg has said, that's just going to be a drop in the bucket. It's still not going to address all the repairs and replacement that are needed in Southwest Middlesex. So while that sounds like a large amount, Councillor McGill, it really isn't. And I think we should all be supporting the additional, what is it, Kristen, 13,000 in there and on top of the, 9.
Yeah. Total of 22. Yep, 22,000.
So years ago, just for some history, there were more than one visitor to our community that fell on our sidewalks. And they did come forward to council and asked that if council did make the promise that they would aggressively pursue the replacement and repair of the sidewalks, they wouldn't take legal action. And council of that day did promise that. So we are behind by a long shot. So that's just a comment, a little bit of history, just for everybody's information.
Go ahead, Councillor Vink. We're going to kind of try to watch the clock here, but go ahead, Martin, if quickly.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I take a little exception to what the Deputy Mayor just said. I believe when you start talking about legal action, you are talking in-camera material. And so I'm very disappointed that legal action was brought up.
Okay. All right. Noted.
I will remind Councillor Vink that those letters and correspondence from those visitors that fell was not dealt with in camera.
Okay. Go on, Councillor McGill, go ahead.
No, the only part that surprised me was that we went from, I think, 9,000 addition to 22,000, but we must have cut something else that I'm missing.
It's that 20,000 in the LPAT.
Okay, that's
Okay.
what happened there.
And
That's what I was surprised about, because I was thinking it would only be a small increase.
And was previously mentioned, our reserves and sidewalks are 103 plus 103,800. Okay, Jill, is there a motion on the floor? Okay. The only other point, I know, Council, that the 1% is very symbolic. I know that had we have come in at 1.2 or 1.3, it's a very modest amount on a monthly basis for the average home in Southwest Middlesex. But again, I do think there is some symbolism in achieving that 1%. It lets people know that we are cognizant of the struggles that are out there. And I think it is quite symbolic. Not so much in dollars and cents, but in terms of symbolism. Councillor McGill? Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, if this I understand would be the final vote on the budget. If we approve this, the budget process is done.
I think unless Kristen would want a separate motion to that effect, but you are endorsing, there's no more material to go over. This would be the last of the criteria in front of us. And Jill, I'm going to let Jill have the floor. She can give us some constructive guidance on this.
Sure. So really, because the motion includes the actual tax rate in there, because it's setting that the reserves for the sidewalks are established at that 22,936 that Kristen mentioned, to bring it to a tax rate increase at 1%. That's the only other thing we would normally say, is that staff be directed to bring back a budget bylaw for council's consideration.
That could be under a separate motion. That could be under a separate motion. Mark, does that satisfy you, or do you have another question?
Well, yeah, no, that's the way I understood it too. So if that's the way it is, then if this is bringing us to a 1% increase, I will support it, and I would like to ask for a recorded vote.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. And Council, I think we've debated this well. We'll go in. We're running about 7 minutes over projected time, but this is extremely important. We're not going to put our tools down now. Last call for questions. Seeing none, Jill, you proceed at your comfort there. Councilor Cal, yes, I see your hand now. Yep.
Sorry, I just thought of it. How much would this cost the average homeowner?
Kristen has that previously identified, I think. Yeah, in her report, the 1% tax rate increase would on the home that you have benchmarked would be what?
$26.16 annually.
Annually, okay.
Because in the report, she actually put 1.1. So that's why I was like, this is different.
Yeah. Yeah, Councilor Coldice, go ahead. Mike, I see your hand.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I'm just wondering what property value are we going on to get that figure?
Good question, and maybe somewhat unrealistic, but is the benchmark used by many. Krista, what have you got?
I
The-
used,
it's the impact value, not the retail value.
yes,
And
I
that's
use
what we
the
have to
impact
remember.
value because that is what actually does drive the taxes. So that should be actually the most accurate method. So it's 186,224.
Yeah, and that doesn't necessarily represent a resale value.
No, but
Okay.
that's what the taxes would be based on.
Okay, Jill, you go ahead when you
All
feel.
right.
Yeah.
Councillor McGill,
Oh, you're asking for the recorded vote. Okay. Yes.
Councillor Carruthers,
Yes.
Councillor Cowell,
Yes.
Councillor Vink,
Yes.
Councillor Bartlett,
Yes.
Councillor Scholdice,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Wilkins,
Yes.
Mayor Mayhew,
Yes.
and the motion carries.
Good. That's a unanimous vote. Yeah. Thank you very much. Council,
Congratulations, Council.
would someone entertain a motion that staff prepared be asked to prepare a bylaw regarding the budget and bring it forward to council? Moved by Councilor
Second.
McGill, seconded by Councilor Carruthers. Discussion? All in favor? Carried. Council, thank you very, very much for those extra 11 minutes. I appreciate it very much, and I'll look forward to seeing you at 7 o'clock. And thank you, staff. I'm very apologize for the late conversations last night, and thank you, Jill, very much. I know we were chatting near past 10 o'clock, and Kristen, today we were on the phone a couple of times, and thank you again. I appreciate those line items being analyzed. Thank you. See you later, Council.
If I can just ask for a confirmation bylaw just for this meeting, if that's okay.
Oh, yes, by all means. Yeah, I better get back to my agenda here. Confirming bylaw, Council, a motion for that, please. Councilor Cal, seconded by Councilor Carruthers. Questions aren't necessary. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Council. And the meeting will adjourn at 5:40.